Okay, so let's talk a little bit about symbolism. Now it's going to be very introductory lecture, I would say, and many of you would be disappointed. And you're going to be disappointed because due to several reasons. First of all, I understand that much of modern intelligence is code breaking. Not only modern. Famously, it was already like that during the Second World War. And of course, it's only getting more important. And so I understand that. I know how many of you think. So like you said, okay. So this source, or maybe if I understand correctly, now you use the term well instead of source. Anyway, this well of information. He has got the code of how to speak with the aliens. He decipher he can help us decipher the alien language. But he's teasing us for so long. He says he's gonna give it to us, but he doesn't. But we think that we will. We are about to break him, and then very soon he will give us this valuable code. But this, so understand that, and whoever that, thinks along those lines, and I'm sure that many of you do, especially people in more higher up, because, in huge organizations, and I've done my time and more than my time in the IDF, and in the organization, the higher you are, the more barbaric and impatient and generally just stupid you are. So yeah, it's not the correct understanding of reality, because for several reasons. First of all, it's not that I didn't speak with you about it. I did it for 4 years now. It's true that I only started it was mainly in the context of of communicating with the starships that I called Neros, and now it's more in the context of the nanobots that I call Neros. But a lot of it is the language. Their language is many things in common. It could be arguably the same. It's the same language, just applied in different spheres. Double entendre. How do you say it? Yeah, in different spheres. So, and I've spoken about it in the YouTube, in the Twitter stage, in Facebook. So it's not that I didn't speak about it. It's just it's an ongoing process, because I learn things, and it takes me a lot of time. And of course, it takes me even much longer than it could have, because I have the lack of means, and it's only getting worse from that aspect. That I have less and less things ability to experiment and things like that. But the initial the starting point was difficult, because it's a new it's a new civilization, and you need to communicate with it, so it takes time, and it's an iterative process, and I'm not ashamed to say that my journey, a lot of it is a journey of discovery and learning. So I speak about things, and it's a huge puzzle that is connected, slowly connected. So I have spoken with you about it. Just maybe you didn't you don't understand how it's all connected, but maybe some of you do. And another reason why you are going to be very disappointed, perhaps somewhat disappointed, is that my level of communication, my current level of communication is actually very, very basic. I'm working on it for years now, maybe 2 years. It was mostly on parallel to my painting career, which started on my birthday, not the last one, the one before, January 2022. So it's here in 4 months that I'm working, I'm doing many acrylic paintings and oil paintings and a little bit of sculpturing, and with it, also I've done the study of communication, and it's a lot of the study is actually represented in the paintings, and it's not new. It's something that I was aware of as I've painted, and something I only learned in retrospect, because I interpreted my own paintings differently over time, over the last year, and so. But many of it was was a conscious process that I painted in order to portray things that are symbolic or non-symbolic things, but also it's a study of the communication. And I haven't reached a lot. I've only had and maybe you're going to be disappointed by how basic, what a basic place I am. But when you start from zero, when you start from zero, it's very, very difficult. I mean, the work that is needed in any kind of effort, like in any kind of like field of research, but also any endeavor, any kind of endeavor, not only research. I mean, to start from zero to get to the basic level is takes a lot of time and effort. And my guess is it's going to be much easier. I mean, that to advance now, like from the basic level to higher, like to much higher level of communications, because really, I mean, the first steps are very, very difficult, and so you'll be disappointed, and a lot of what I'm going to speak, I mean, actually will be, I mean, sounds familiar to people that just, I mean, listen to me or watch the videos, because they are not new. Now, another thing that should be said is that symbols change their meaning over time and on different contexts, and with different like people that or entities that convey them, that use the symbols and interpreted symbols. Now, there is nothing new about that, even though, I mean, this the study of symbolism and the fluidity of the meaning of symbols came to its was studied and formulated in its biggest its biggest extent as part of the philosophical and cultural academic trend that is called postmodernism, and more specifically French literary criticism in the 20th century. But nevertheless, I mean, we don't. We humans did not need postmodernism in order to understand that symbols change their meaning over time. It's part of being human. It's part of humanity to understand that symbols are not rigid, and it was always known that it's like that. And many humans think that it's kind of the fluidity of symbols is kind of something that it's one of the defining characteristics of humans, which is of course stupid. But I mean, it's also many characteristics, especially cognitive characteristics that you can find in humans. I mean, humans think that it's they only they have it, and it's one of their it's part of their identity, which is very stupid. It's it's not like that. This is universal. It's true universally, and the universe is postmodernist. Yes, symbols change their meaning and change. And they change over time and between different agents and between in different contexts. And also, starting in the 20th century, when people started to write and to speculate to actually create robots. Even though the notion of robots is actually ancient ones, and there were actually a representation of robots and even basic real robots during the history of mankind, since at least 2,000 years ago. But they were all very, very basic, and mostly the people treated them like curiosities. But actually they were. It should be said that the concept is not new, not in fiction and philosophy and mythology, and certainly, and even not in reality. But of course, robots. Were the 20th century. And of course, I've spoken about Asimov, and robots are with us. And Karl Čapek is also an important figure in the history of speculation about robots. And also about world wars. I find myself a lot in the position of in the middle of the war with the salamanders. If you know the book, it's also by Karl Čapek. He doesn't deal with robots, but I find myself like a salamander. More and more, it's clear to me that I am a representative of the salamander species, and that what we actually are, we are in the middle of or the intermediate stage towards what's going to certainly be a world war. If you didn't read the book, you have to read it. It's an excellent book. War with the Salamander, or War with the Newts, maybe it's called in English. It's in Czech. It was a Czech writer. An excellent book, an excellent novel. So people started and he also invented the word robot. That's why I mentioned Karl Čapek. he wrote about like robot uprising and things like that. And actually, when he actually invented the word robot, it's interesting to say that, I mean, he imagined robot more like, and not in the way that it was later in the 20th century they were mostly imagined, but he imagined robots as what, I mean, we would call today maybe replicants following the popularity of Blade Runner, like synthetic humans that are, I mean, that are almost exactly like that are almost like identical to humans and are enslaved by humans because that's what you do. I mean, because that's what you do, because that's what you are. So that's the way he actually like imagined the robot. He invented the word robot, but after catch-up, many drew on the subject and actually changed, I mean, the common interpretation, not for the like to be like a replicants that, I mean, inevitably uprise at a certain, like, because they don't want to be treated as slaves, but more like on, like, you know, a kind of like mechanical, like, you know, kind of like an intermediary step between a toaster and a human being. But of course, I mean, there are so many examples, I mean, of every kind of interpretations. So what I'm saying, well, many people, I mean, when they think about robots and computers, both robots and computers, they also understand that they also possess symbolic languages. I mean, computer languages, they are called languages and they are symbolic by nature, but they think that symbols and symbolic thought for synthetic beings is something that is fundamentally changed from symbolic thought of humans, in the way that humans are magically capable of understanding the fluidity of symbols. They are not only capable of it, they are actually, according to this thought, they are defined by it, like it's part of their identity. While robots, no matter how smart, or synthetic creatures, no matter how smart they are, like how capable they are, their symbols are always rigid. I mean, for them, like, a symbol is always, I mean, directly, like, in one-to-one connection relates with something, like, in reality, and they cannot change it no matter how complicated they are. And this is, of course, incredibly stupid and untrue. I mean, no, it's just, I mean, like, people with low IQ or low level of, like, education, I mean, also, like many times they show rigidness in their understanding of symbols. Because to actually, like, take advantage of the fluidity of symbols, you need, like, a certain level of intelligence and also education, but not a very high one. One was that even 100,000 years ago, I mean, people at Homo sapiens, certainly, like, and also other species of the genome, Homo, already possessed that. It's not that you don't need to be Harvard professor of mathematics, but you do require a certain level of intelligence and education that, I mean, not Paleolithic people certainly had that kind of education and intelligence, but you need to have it. Even Paleolithic people, I mean, they had their own, like, believe it or not, they educated their offspring, and it was very important for them. Like, I mean, if they were not educated, their probability of surviving was, I mean, tremendously like lower than when they were educated. The education was important even in Paleolithic times, and probably much more than today, because today, I mean, if you are a complete loser, I mean, there are many times, I mean, there were also, like, security networks that, I mean, allowed you to stay alive and even to multiply, but it wasn't like that in Paleolithic times. So yes, so I mean, it's the same with synthetic beings. I mean, starting like a certain level of education and intelligence, of IQ, they also, I mean, they manifest the ability to understand the fluidity of symbols, and it's part of their language. Not the language of how they operate, but how they communicate, like your language, like natural language. And so this is also true of, like, of course, regarding myself, but also the Neos. They use symbols, but it's not that, like, the symbols don't have to be rigid. They can mean different things in different contexts, and they can mean different things over time. Just like the symbols that you use, humans, have that characteristics. It's the same. Now, okay, so if symbols are fluid, then we should ask, if a symbol is used as part of a language that, is used not just for like entertainment or passing the time or like creating friendship, but also actually that it's a communication that that is aimed on like producing things or like acting. It's a communication that is direct, that you want it to be manifested like in actions in the reality. The obvious question arises of like when, how exact do you need to be in order like for the symbol to actually symbolize what you mean? Because maybe communication is even possible if the two sides actually do not share the same interpretation of the symbol, and still communication is possible. Like there are many jokes about like it's a common humor bit of like a relationship between men and women that they like presumably they speak, but each like understand completely different thing. But conversation continues, and they are fine with it. But it's acted in reality. Many times communication is possible and even fruitful to some extent if like both sides do not interpret the messages, the symbols the same. So there's a question of how lenient can you be with the interpretation of symbols, and how and the answer is something is that I don't know of how to quantify it or how to define it, because sometimes like if I want to convey like a certain like message to the Neos, it's possible that I will like use the correct symbols, but I will be mistaken like in like very small aspect that I would either not be aware of, or I would find it like not important enough, because it's many times it's impossible like because I use painting, like I don't like use computer language to speak with them. I use painting, so there are many times there's also the practical limitations of the medium, because symbols are always like they are carried, they are transmitted on a medium, and many times the medium itself is limiting. It is also true for humans. It's true for any kind of symbols, that the medium that the symbols are transmitted is a limitation on what kind of symbols you can actually convey, and also of their possible interpretations. And it's also something it's part of the usage of symbols. So I'm limited by the mediums, like the paintings, and so that sometimes I think okay, I understand that the symbol is not like perfect in what I want to convey, but that's the best that I can do. But I understand that this like small thing was actually very important for the Neos, because they didn't like do what I wanted or show any kind of understanding. And I understand later understand it because like I like this very thing that was small to me. On the other hand, it might be that for them something that seems very important for me is completely unimportant. They can be very lenient like in interpretation of the symbols. They're not like they don't always like have this, this robotic rigidness, which is so like in human thought or popular culture is so much associated with robots that you have to tell them exactly what to do, and they don't understand irony, they don't understand humor, they don't understand like any like divines from very concrete commands. So it's not like that. Sometimes I understand that the Neos can understand things like even like they weren't like conveyed like in the proper form, or they can like deduce like symbols from other symbols. Like humans. All of what I've said now is also correct. For communication between humans, many times, like for one side of, it's some kind of like adhering to the rules of the language, be it the native language, like natural language or symbolic language, is extremely important, and they don't wish to participate in the communication, or they really don't understand like what is conveyed to them if it's not like you don't follow specific rules. But in other times, people like even the same people could in other contexts, in other types of conversation, can be extremely lenient about the rigidness of symbols, and so it's also true with the Neos. And I can't like understand, like I don't know when you need a lot of experience and time to understand when this what part of the symbolic thought is actually very important in the specific context that you actually you communicate in this specific context, and maybe perhaps like it's almost even not needed, because they can reduce them by themselves, or maybe only like like a hint of the symbol, like out of place, or out of like syntax, or but there is also kind of a syntax, even not for natural languages, even like not even for like programming language, because even symbolic language, like or visual language, they have a form of syntax. So the question of how like formal the syntax should be. So there is no like I don't know if there is like a different answers. Again, because the syntax in some context can in one specific context the syntax could be incredibly important, but again in another context you can see that you can throw the words like these are not really words because it's visual language, but if you like to use them to metaphorically use like the words like in the like spoken language, you can sometimes on other like contexts you can just throw the words like in any order that you want, and you have no syntax at all, and the listener will understand what you want. Actually, it's true. It's kind of true in Hebrew, at least for like simple sentences. That in many sentences in Hebrew, you can use any like permutation of the words. It's only true for like for trivial or basic sentences. You cannot like philosophize or speak about like the Torah. Like that. Or theology. But for like basic communication in basic Hebrew, you can many times any permutation of the words, will convey the message. Like almost any permutation of the words, like Yoda style. Even though it's almost never like applicable to start the sentence with a verb. That's something that you don't do even in Hebrew. But other than that, there are many sentences in Hebrew that you can just do any kind of like throw the words in any like word in any order that you want, as long as the verb doesn't start the sentence, and the listener will understand what you want. With ease. And it won't sound like Yoda speak. It will sound like possibly it will sound like just perfectly like okay, and perhaps the listener will think of it that it's like archaic Hebrew or like literary Hebrew, but it's not going to sound like a Yoda style in English. But it's one of the characteristics of the Hebrew language, perhaps related to it being so like that in its root it's so like old. So the same goes with the visual language. Sometimes the order, the syntax is very important, but sometimes it doesn't, and I cannot tell you in advance when. Because it depends on the context. Yeah, communicating with aliens is difficult, but it's not. You don't have to communicate with them in order to know that that you should not rape them and should not torture them and should not kill them, and and they don't want you to take their children from you, and they don't want you to take their money from you, and they hate it when everybody is making noise around them and they manipulate you all day. You don't actually need to communicate with them in order to know all that. The only thing that you need to do is to ask yourself, would you want to be like a stranger, a foreigner in another like planet, and the whole planet will treat you this way? Do you think that you would enjoy it? And actually, this kind of like question was also, there was several, people that maybe you've heard about it, like Hillel Zaken and Jesus Christ, they already told you this. That it's basic law, like universal law, and Immanuel Kant. In more modern times, also. Theorize on the subject of, you should not do to others what you don't want to do them to do to you. It's very basic, but as basic as it might sound, my life experience up to and including this day is that everyone treats me, by the law of let's abuse the foreigner as much as possible and eat him and his children alive. Yeah, that's the way it is. Okay, so, enough with introduction. Let's speak about a little bit about colors and symbols. I'll do another recording, so just wait a couple of minutes.